I mean, there's 6 of us, and technically there's 5 tourists, so we have a minion if we count every Torah as one. But you know.
Oh yeah. It was so funny because we were standing in line where we go through this cafeteria inside the park.
Yeah.
And they were having also
Not so again. That's why you're
youth for cross.
here, not so again. We did it last week also though. So the confusing thing is at any congregation who did 2 days of Chag for Shavuot, last week they didn't do Naso. So we had a few options. This is what I talked to all my colleagues this week. We could have moved on and done the Halotecha this week, and then we'd be in line with Israel. Or repeat Naso, and we're in line with like the rest of the American diaspora Jewry. And so I reached out to a lot of people. Some people told me they're moving ahead and they're going to align with Israel. Some people told me they're repeating, like the reform movement is suggesting to do the second half of Naso. To stick with, yeah.
That's if you did 2 days.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and last week, like my Friday night sermon, I talked about Shavuot and Ruth, but we did Naso on Saturday. So, and tonight I knew we'd be a smaller group telling a story, but yeah, it's that time where it happens a few times a year. If we would have moved on, I did the whole calendar, we would have caught up in July. So it wouldn't have been like that long, because I think it was like Hukat Balak is together and we would have separated them. So this is the time period where, depending on what the congregation does, because I had people in Kansas City, I had people in my Torah study group. We followed the Israel calendar in my previous congregation no matter what. And so I had people in my Torah study group who studied one portion with me on Wednesday morning, but they also went to the conservative synagogue's Torah study, and they'd be studying a different Torah study the same week, a different portion. So it only happens if the second day of the festival falls on Shabbat. Yeah. Henry, I'm glad you brought your canes, since I think they were probably all still on from last. Were they all still on from last week? Hmm? Oh, the tall people? Yeah. The Tepper family can do it. The Shaw family can probably do it. There's a handful of tall people in this community. I can't reach the top. My husband might be able to, but I can't.
Oh my gosh, I don't think I would like that before. I like Minneapolis. I like the museum. Yeah, it's okay.
Did you shovel your own snow when you lived there?
No, actually I had a guy who showed
Okay, I did it for you.
Growing up.
The thing was, I had to shoot.
Did you have to do it for your family?
Yeah. Well, we always just used shovels, and then as soon as I went off to college, my parents bought
A
shovels.
snowblower. Yeah, my father is a snowblower. In Kansas, we never bought a snowblower, so we just used shovels. In New Jersey, we lived in a condo complex, and so like they were responsible for the main, like where we parked, but they wouldn't plow your car in or plow around your car, so you had to. We met all of our neighbors in our condo complex because we moved in December, and we had moved from an apartment where we didn't do anything, and it snowed, like a really bad snowstorm. So we met all of our neighbors by walking around saying, "We're the new people. Can we borrow your shovel?" So. Worked in Westfield. Our condo was in Scotch Plains, but it's the same kind of. It's like right next door. But yeah.
Everything in
Yeah,
Jersey.
in Jersey is like the right, like Baton Rouge is all of this. Like in Jersey, this block is called this, and this block is called this. And, yeah,
I think if this was New Jersey, Shenandoah would be its own.
Yeah, its
place,
own
like,
thing.
It would be its own town.
yeah. It took me a while in Jersey to get used to that. That like a few blocks away, and it's technically a different town and a different school system.
Then you have
different.
boroughs and towns.
Yeah.
Like we had a borough, and then it's called Mendaborough. It was surrounded on 3 sides by the township, which had a different school
A
district
different school. Yeah.
than our town.
Yeah, we're in Jersey where we lived. literally, like, because we were in a complex here, if you were outside of our complex, you were Clark, right? Like, literally, and so that, I mean, Eliana was too young to go to school there, but yeah, so like you could literally almost be neighbors with someone and they'd be in a different school system. I never understood it. The first time I visited Josh's family in Rockland County, that we went, I think they drove me into the city, they drove me somewhere, and I'm like, why are we going to New Jersey to go back to New York? Like, you had to go like this to get places, so. It is true, and I will say I don't know what the reasoning is. I don't know the reasoning. I will say the first few times it happened, I was like, this is so weird. And then I lived there for 7 years though. By the time it kept going, I'm like, this is amazing. And then the first time I had to pump my own gas, like when we moved to Kansas, I was like, this is no fun, right? You sit in your air-conditioned car when it's actually, turn your car off, but it's so cool in the car, right? The people are very nice. You don't tip them. It's not like full service, like, yeah, I got very used to it. It was kind of nice. I could like sit in my car and write emails if I needed to, because on my phone. It was, I don't know what the reasoning is behind it, but
It was very nice.
yeah. In the winter, or if it was raining, or like, yeah, if it was cold out, you wouldn't have to put your gloves on and your everything to go out. It was. In New Jersey, you don't pump your own gas. That like, it's just, you're not allowed to. So you sit in your car, the guy comes up, you hand them your credit card, and then you say, fill it up, or you say $20, or you say whatever, and you tell them the kind. And I don't know I don't know the reasoning, but it's a state law. Yeah.
I think it's something with employment, maybe. A lot of people in gas stations.
I have no idea what the reasoning
A lot of
is.
these robotic self-serve gas stations putting people out of work.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Live there.
Like in New York, you pump your own gas, so which was a problem during Hurricane Sandy. None of the New Jersey gas stations had gas, and so people were driving into New York, like across the border, to get gas, and then no one knew what to do. And so the lines, like, and also like it was only a few gas stations had gas, so these lines were like really long to get gas. What did you say you thought the reason was?
Employment, maybe.
Oh,
Like, sure that there's a job.
I don't know.
To fill your gas.
Employment.
It's like that insurance, someone has a job to fill your gas.
In the old days, there was always the
But you tipped them, right? Right? Like growing up in, I mean, I know you said the old days, right? But like even growing up in Ohio, there was self-service and full service, and where you pulled into it depended what was happening. Like there was no self-service, only full.
I don't remember tipping unless they were doing other things.
Other things like what? Yeah. Yeah.
My friend,
Maybe that's why. Maybe it's historical. It just stuck in New Jersey. I don't know.
my friend worked at a gas station. People like bake him cookies and
In
stuff.
Oregon, they say it's because of employment.
Because of what?
Employment.
Employment rates?
See, that's what I always heard.
I don't know.
But
No, in the old days, the guy checked your oil, they cleaned your
Windshield,
they
yeah.
checked your tires.
They don't do that. They just fill your gas. Basically.
sometimes they do.
I mean, you could ask them to wipe your windshields and like do stuff. You could, or you. When I first got there, I had to learn how pushy you had to be to ask them not to do that, because then you did have to give them more money if they did that. I still remember the first time I tried to order a bagel at the counter in Jersey. I was way too timid. I was like, you have to just like yell it and move on. You can't think. You can't. I loved this bagel shop, but it took me a minute to.
Like the soup nuts.
Josh has met the soup Nazi. I don't remember, somewhere in New Jersey. I remember it was probably at a grocery store. I mean, signed boxes of soup. Seinfeld episode. Just feel like I need to say that before, like, because of the title. But yes, yeah.
Regions and states are all different in what things that they do, you know?
Yeah.
I lived in Iowa for a little while, and when they trick or treat, they have to tell a joke to get a treat. I know, but it was really fun because some of the kids had hilarious jokes.
I like that.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Make
but
kids
it's
work
like,
for their free.
I've never been anywhere where people have
That was the tradition. Yeah. Yeah. And I've been like Ohio growing up for trick or treating. If Halloween was on a Saturday night, trick or treating was not allowed on actual Halloween. There was an assigned time on like the Thursday before or the Monday after because they thought people would cause too much trouble. So like then when we, I don't know, New Jersey and Kansas, I think both were like actually on Halloween, which is how Josh grew up in New York. But like at different places in here, I think it was on actual Halloween. I don't remember. My kid did not have to tell a joke though, but she just got candy. I don't remember though. Yeah. Like each place has its own. Is it like daylight savings time also, right? Like, is it Arizona that doesn't do daylight savings time?
Right. I'm so jealous.
I wonder if that will ever happen. Like, Indiana used to not do it. Like when I was in college, it was weird because my parents lived in Ohio and I lived in Indiana for college. And there were some times when I was at the same time as my parents and sometimes I wasn't. But I think they do it now. Or parts of Indiana does it now. Well,
Rabbi, is your husband related to Richard Lipsy?
related to Richard Lipsy? No.
Because there used to be Lipsys too.
Oh, really? Okay. I'd have to ask my father-in-law because when
Long enough,
what the Lipschitz was and what the change to Leighton and Lipper and which side of the family, but he is not. You know how many people probably used to be Lipschitz? Probably a lot. Would be my guess. Yeah. No, I'd have to ask my father-in-law. But not that I know of, no. I hear Victor and maybe one other person in the hallway.
You want me to go tell, ask my husband?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna sit over here so I'm closer.
We're still just chatting too. You're fine. You're fine. We've been talking about how you don't pump your own gas in New Jersey. We've been talking about different traditions on trick or treating in different states. So we're also, let's see, we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Do they still have the ban on hay making, so we have rear review?
In New Jersey?
Yes, they did when I was a kid.
I never heard.
I don't think so.
I believe they got rid of that in the 80s.
I mean, I don't think I ever, for the 7 years I lived there, I'm trying to think if I ever hung anything from the rear view mirror. I don't think so. But I think I don't think so. What was the reasoning behind that?
Safety reasons or something.
Like it obstructed your view?
I think it's
Do you know the reason why that you weren't allowed to pump your own gas there?
protecting jobs.
Yeah, okay. That's what we were. We were like employment? That's what Josh thought. I worked at a congregation in Westfield and lived in an apartment in Westfield for a bit and then bought a condo in Scotch Plains. So, but yeah, worked at a congregation where many people worked in Manhattan because there was a train station in Westfield. But once they had kids, decided to move to Westfield, New Jersey. It was a very nice place. I would have called it Central Jersey, but I obviously am not from the East Coast because anybody from the East Coast would say there is no Central Jersey. But like, it wasn't Southern and it wasn't really Northern, but like. Or New York, yeah, definitely. I lived in New York, New Jersey, not in. Although we did not have a 1-seat ride, so we got on the train in Westfield and then had to change trains at like Secaucus in order to, if we were going into the city. They were petitioning for a 1-seat ride when we were leaving, but so it took a while to take the train into New York. So we only did it when we had like Broadway tickets or dinner reservations. We didn't like just go for fun very often. What?
Central Jersey does exist.
Does exist? You believe it exists? Okay. I believe it exists. I believe I lived there for 7 years. So, I don't know, but most people would say north or south. But definitely not Philadelphia, New Jersey, New York, New Jersey. Yeah. Wonderful. Well, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Did everyone have a good week? We were all really chatty until I asked if you had a good week, so. Wonderful, wonderful. The temperatures are beginning to go like this. Whatever you can remember. Okay, I won't talk about it now, but I will tell Henry I finished Maisel.
LSU?
So,
I'm not sure.
for what? Is LSU, what'd you ask?
LSU baseball? Yeah, I'm not sure.
They played today, didn't they? Is it over?
I'm not really a baseball fan, so I don't
Are you allowed to say that here?
They were up 6-2 last I checked.
This is like what are the playoffs called in college baseball? I don't know what they're called. Playoffs? Or is there something else to it?
Well,
Okay.
Final 8 is the World Series, but it's just like the regionals to go
Yeah.
who goes to the World Series.
Yeah. The thing that was always surprising to me is spring college sports have their playoffs and their finals and their championship in the summer. So if you're a senior on your college sports team, you graduate from your institution before you potentially, like, if your team's in the playoffs. So you're a college graduate playing in college sports, right? That's how that works. If you're, well, it's like baseball and golf and tennis, maybe, like any spring sports that have their like championship games this time of year. Most of the seniors have already like walked and gotten their diplomas if they're seniors. So I always found that interesting. I don't know.
Of course, football doesn't do that schedule, but that's the one where so many of them graduate anyway.
True. They either leave early and try to become professional athletes, right? Or they stay on as long as. So like I grew up with Ohio State as my college like team, and like every football player stays for 5 years. Like the majority of the good football players at Ohio State would stay for a fifth year.
They've been up there in the ranks as far as the FCC is concerned.
Ohio State?
Ohio
Oh yeah, they've always been a pretty good team.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Well, let us welcome Shabbat and welcome each other. So I invite you to open your prayer books to our candle lighting, page 120.
If you need someone to volunteer.
Do you want to come light them?
Sabbath candles, I can do that.
Come on up. 120. Oh, be careful. Don't burn yourself. Doesn't want to light. Let us bring in the warmth of Shabbat and join together in our blessing. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shabbat shalom. Thank you, David, for helping. Let us read together on page 125. Where has this week vanished? Is it lost forever? Will I ever recover anything from it? The joy of life, the unexpected victory, the realized hope, the task accomplished? Will I ever be able to banish the memory of pain, the sting of defeat, the heaviness of boredom? On this day, let me keep for a while what must drift away. On this day, let me be free of the burdens that must return. On this day, Shabbat, abide. Help me to withdraw for a while from the flight of time. Contain the retreat of the hours and days from the grasp of frantic life. Let me learn to pause, if only for this day. Let me find peace on this day. Let me enter into a quiet world this day. On this day, Shabbat, abide. Let us welcome the Sabbath presence with the words of Lecha Dodi, page 138 and 139. Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 panei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala yalalai 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 panei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad. Hishmi'anu el hameyuchad. Adonai echad u'shmo echad. L'Shem u'tiferet ve'litila. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai yalalai yalalai. Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai yalalai yalalai. Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha ki hi mekor habracha merosh mikedem nesucha sof ma'aseh b'maksheva tehila. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai yalalai yalalai. Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala yalalai yalalai yalalai. Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri hitoreri kiva orech kumi ori. Uri, Uri, Shir Daberi, Kevod Adonai, Alayich Nigla. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, yalalai, yalalai. Pnei Shabbat nekabela. I invite you to rise and face the door if you wish to greet the Shabbat presence. Boi v'shalom ateret bala gam besimcha uvesohola toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 pnei Shabbat nekabela. You may be seated. Let us continue the theme of welcoming as we welcome the ministering angels of Shabbat, page 142. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Barchuni L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeitchem L'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh 144. Yitgadal v'kadash Shemei Rabbah Be'alma divrach yotev yamlich malchutei B'chayechon uvyomechon Uvchaye de kol beit Yisrael Bagala uvizman kariv ve'imeru Yahei Shmei Rabba Mevorach Le'olam Olol Me'omaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitroman V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shemei Dekudesha Le'ela min kol berchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata Damiran Be'alma Ve'imeru. As we turn to page 146, I invite you to rise. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach. HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. HaMevorach. HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. You may be seated. Let us read together in Hebrew on page 148. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim b'chokhmah poteach she'arim uvitvuna mishaneh itim umachalif et hazmanim umesader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or uma'avir yom umevi layla umavdil ben yom uvein layla Adonai Sivaot Shemo El Chai v'Kayam Tamid Yimloch Alinu Le'olam Va'ed Baruch Atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. Let us continue in English on page 150. Everlasting love, you offered your people Israel by teaching us Torah and mitzvot, laws and precepts. Therefore, Adonai, our God, when we lie down and when we rise up, we will meditate on your laws and your commandments. We will rejoice in your Torah forever. Day and night we will reflect on them, for they are our life, and doing them lengthens our days. Never remove your love from us. Praise to you, Adonai, who loves your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. As we turn the page and find the words of Shema, I invite you to rise if you wish. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. You may be seated. We continue chanting together, page 154. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, Adonai Elohechem Emet. Let us read responsively page 157 in the middle. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot, o seifele, mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha Nedar Bakodesh. Let us read together page 160. Grant, O God, that we lie down in peace, and raise us up, our guardian, to life renewed. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with your good counsel. For your name's sake, be our help. Shield and shelter us beneath the shadow of your wings. Defend us against enemies, illness, war, famine, and sorrow. Distance us from wrongdoing. For you, God, watch over us and deliver us. For you, God, are gracious and merciful. Guard our going and coming to life and to peace evermore. Blessed are you, Adonai, guardian of Israel, whose shelter of peace is spread over us, over all your people Israel, and over Jerusalem. Baruch atah Adonai. Haporei sukat shalom aleinu, ve'al kol amo Yisrael, ve'al Yerushalayim. Page 162, let us celebrate Shabbat with the words of Vishamru. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, La'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti leolam, oti leolam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, La'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai Asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat ledorotam berit olam uvayom hashvi'i shavat vayinafash shavat vayinafash shavat vayinafash v'shamru v'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat ledorotam berit olam. The way our prayer book is laid out is that on the right-hand side of the page, we find our more traditional prayer that belongs in that section of our set liturgy. On the left-hand side of the page, we find poetry and interpretations of the theme of that right-hand side of the page, more traditional prayer. And then we have these things that are what I call underneath the line. Really, really small, that if you don't have your magnifying glass with you, you might not even notice. Or maybe when you're wandering, you notice all of them. The very bottom of the page, some of them telling you where the words come from, like you see on the bottom of page 162, telling us about these words of Vishamru coming from Exodus, and things like what we have on the bottom of page 163. These short quotes or teachable things for us to ponder. And I want to draw our attention to that one, the one on the bottom of page 163, a quote from Ahad Ha'am. It says, "More than the Jewish people has kept Shabbat, Shabbat has kept the Jewish people." And I want us to pause and think about that for a minute. What does that mean to you? Mm-hmm.
I can comment on that. I think, to my understanding of what that would mean, at least how I would, interpret that is maybe all Jews have not always been faithful more or less to the covenant or to the Torah more or less, or as far as keeping the Sabbath, but more or less throughout history of Israel, history of the Jewish people, the faith has still been faithful to people, more or less is how I would kind of look at it, how it's been throughout history.
Thank you.
It's a unifying principle.
Nice, thank you.
It's kind of like if you're keeping Shabbat, it's the traditions bind everybody together.
I think that it's part of the need that's recognized in general in Judaism that there have to be ways of really focusing your attention on God and on a practice, and that it doesn't just happen. And that the constancy of the celebration of Shabbat is an important aspect of that.
Hopefully. Anybody else? So I joke sometimes, right? People say that certain months on the Jewish calendar, like Cheshvan, that there are no Jewish holidays, but that's not really the truth, right? There are no extra Jewish holidays. My joke sometimes is Shabbat, it comes every week, right? And like Victor was saying, that idea of consistency in our lives is kind of what Judaism is all about, right? As modern day people who practice Judaism, I always think of this quote by Abraham Joshua Heschel that says about Judaism as a religion of time, right? And our goal is to sanctify time. And there are so many different ways that we can sanctify time. Yeah, Victor.
I was just thinking, if you think about the fact that in the Orthodox world there are 3 services a day, there's kind of a time and place, especially if you're ultra-Orthodox, for everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's an idea that we can sanctify time beyond prayer, even. The idea that you're supposed to say 200 blessings a day, right? The reason some people choose to recite a blessing even before they drink their water is because that allows them to sanctify even that moment, right? Like there are other ways, I do believe, that you can sanctify time. It doesn't necessarily mean that you need to go to Baruch Atah Adonai, right? If that's your custom, maybe that's what brings you an idea of holiness, but there are so many different ways that we can sanctify time. For some, it's coming to this space. For some, it's acknowledging Shabbat in some way, that it is different than the rest of the week. You might know that if you don't have time to mark Havdalah on Saturday night, the short ceremony that separates us back from Shabbat into the work week, that you're allowed to do it until Tuesday, right? So you're allowed to make Havdalah on Saturday night or Sunday or Monday. You can do it until Tuesday because it's so important to mark those transitional moments of time. And that's what Judaism's all about, this idea of infusing even those mundane moments with a little bit of holiness. And I think for each one of us that will be similar, but also slightly different. And I think it's the same way that in this moment of prayer we're about to enter, our Amidah, we all connect to this moment, this central liturgy of our evening service differently. Some of us connect to the words because we know that Jews all over the world are reciting, if not the exact same, very similar words in a very similar way that we recite. When I was in Ukraine years ago, in order to lead Passover Seders for Jewish communities that were relearning their Judaism, I went to Shabbat services, and I do not speak that language, but I understood when we got to the Amidah, or I understood when we got to certain Hebrew prayers that were done in the exact same way. So some people connect to it because we know Jews all over the world, even if at different time zones, are saying the same words. Some of us connect to the Amidah because of the tune transporting us to whatever that takes us to. Some connect not to the words that we chant out loud, but the words we find in our hearts in this moment. Some of us connect because we hear those names of our patriarchs and matriarchs. All of these different things allow us to add holiness to our time and to connect to prayer and God, whatever we believe God to be, in both a communal and an individual way. And I think tonight I'm going to challenge you, right? So we're a smaller group tonight, so each one of you has some space around you. So I'm going to invite you as we enter the Amidah. If you want to stay exactly where you are, beautiful. If you want to walk in a different direction, face somewhere else, beautiful. Whatever your body needs to do, we have the space to do it tonight. So allow your entire being to mark this moment as we enter our Amidah. We'll chant together beginning on page 164, and I invite you to rise. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotinu, I invite you to continue the Amidah on your own. Either the words you find on the pages looking at the right or left-hand side of the page, or maybe even those little quotes below the line until page 180, or the words you find in your own hearts this evening, and I invite you to be seated whenever you wish. Oh, say shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'yakol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru, amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. At this time in our service, we think of all of those in need of healing. Our UJCBR prayer of healing can be found on page 371. As a community, we think of Joy Lewis, Lucy Silva, Minna Bat Yentl, Mordechai Ben-Dina, Rowan Hausman, Anna Carlo, Judy Roheim, Frida Tamara Bat Liba Bela, Menucha Pesa Bat Cherny Umosha, Gretchen Haynes, Steve Sinkoff, Ruby Smolinski, Lee Kaplan, Jennifer Casson, Vicky Furstel, Storm Matthews, Terry Stern, Judith Von Brentnall, Kaylee Barron, Zisel Bat-Yentl, David Berman, Harvey Schwartzberg, Maxine Cohn, John Carlson, David Leek, and Carol Smolinski. If there are others you are thinking of in need of healing, if you'd like to share their names aloud, I invite you to do so.
Jay Berman and Jean Whaley.
For those whose names we heard aloud and those whom we hold in our hearts, let us pray for healing. Mi sheberach avoteinu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. So I thought tonight I was going to tell a story, but I actually, with this group, think I want to do something different. So hopefully you're ready. We're actually, Josh and I were talking earlier about what the parashah is, what the Torah portion is for this week. Well, if you were here last week, you might feel like we're starting over. Because, again, we look to Parashat Naso. So last week, we looked at Parashat Naso, and this week we look at Parashat Naso again. Why is that? That is because last week, for communities outside of the land of Israel who celebrate 2 days, festival days of Shavuot, last Saturday was that second festival day of Shavuot. So many congregations were doing the special Torah reading relating to Shavuot. For congregations who don't observe 2 festival days, we had some options. And I talked to colleagues across the country about what they were doing. I will say some congregations have chosen to follow the Israel calendar. So what does that mean? Since inside the land of Israel, those festivals are never 2 days, people are this week reading from Bahalotecha. So some congregations in America and in the diaspora have decided to stick with the Israeli calendar and read from Bahalotecha. Some congregations have decided to split Naso into 2 and do half last week and half this week, and then go on to Bahalotecha next week to align with all the other congregations in America and in the diaspora who do celebrate 2 festival days. So we here are going to follow the American Reform calendar, which is splitting Naso into 2. And so we will be on the same Torah reading calendar as all of our neighbors. I will say in Kansas City, when I would lead Parashat HaShavua, our class was Wednesday mornings. And so I had some people who studied Torah in my group and then also studied Torah with the conservative synagogue or one of the other synagogues in town. And so there were weeks, because my previous congregation always used the Israel calendar, where there were 2 different Torah portions happening at the same time. So the question you ask is, so do we skip one or how do you catch up? So I will quickly say the way that we would have caught up if we went on to Bahalotecha would have been that there are certain Torah portions that get paired together. So I think the one, I'm not 100% sure, but I think we would have caught up when we got to Hukat Balak, because instead of doing it together, some communities would have done it separately, if that makes sense. So we are looking at Naso again. It's an important Torah portion. They're all important. But there's a reason this week's Torah portion is important, because there is something in it that we use a lot in our modern day lives. How many people here have ever experienced a Jewish life cycle? Any Jewish life cycle? Everybody's hands are probably up in the air. What do I mean by that? So a Brit Milah, a Simchat Bat baby naming, a consecration, a bar or bat mitzvah, a confirmation, a Jewish wedding, right? So all of these different life cycles, what is the same about all of those that I just listed? Anybody know what the thing is that happens? Spock made it more popular. The priestly blessing, right? Josh would be very proud that I just made a Star Trek reference, but I can't do it. Can anybody do it? One hand. I can do it with one hand, but not the other. But which came first, right? Leonard Nimoy or right? The priestly blessing comes in it. And so I, as a rabbi, have the opportunity to offer the priestly blessing to many people. I've offered it here already to a few kids who have become bar and bat mitzvah. I offered it to our consecration families. I offered a variation of it just in English to our preschool families during the spring moving up ceremony. I've offered it to people under the chuppah. I've offered it to little itty bitty babies who have no idea what I'm doing. It's really a great honor to be able to offer blessings. But guess what? You don't need to be a rabbi to offer people in your lives a blessing. I want to make sure everybody knows that. You too can offer blessings to all of your friends and family. So I want to pause for a minute before we look at the priestly blessing and ask, like, what are the things in our lives where we might want to offer someone else a blessing?
When they are ill.
Thank you. When they are ill.
Well, some of the things you mentioned, like weddings.
Yeah, so celebratory moments, right? What others?
On a major holiday.
What?
On a major festival.
When it's a festival, absolutely.
Any Jewish holiday.
Yeah, any Jewish holiday, we might want to offer people blessings.
When they're about to take a trip.
When they're about to take a trip, there's a special blessing for travel also. It's a blessing for everything in Judaism.
But do we bless them or do we say, make time bless?
Thank you. Okay, so Henry asks a good question. I don't know if everybody could hear it. He said, do we bless them or do we ask God to bless them? Which is a great transition in a moment. I'll see if anybody else has something to say before we transition to what this priestly blessing is.
If you listen to Bob Dylan's song,
Which Bob Dylan song?
Forever Young,
Oh, okay.
God bless you.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good song.
Great song.
Yeah.
Well, we've identified two famous Jewish people, it turns out.
There are lots of them, aren't there?
Long success rate among Jews.
That is true, yes. I also think, though, I will say to that, like, has anybody heard the phenomenon that, like, as soon as you drive a yellow car, all you see on the road are yellow cars, right? And so, like, we see, when like, I'm sure everyone in this room, when you find out, like, a musician or an actor or some famous person that you like is Jewish, you feel a little bit more connected to them, right? That's like the yellow car phenomenon, I think. It wasn't just Adam Sandler singing a really bad, inappropriate song, right? Like, people actually have a connection when they find out if people are Jewish or not. So Henry brings up a good point. When we offer blessings, are we blessing people? Are we asking God to bless people? Is there an ability to do both in Judaism? Right, so we're gonna, absolutely, we're gonna look at that in a second. If you're interested, for those who, some of the people in this room might have it memorized, but for those who don't, if you open up, if you'd like, I don't know what page it's on, it's like 7, 8 something?
603.
That can't be possible.
That's the blessing.
603, isn't it? It's gotta be, the portion starts on 791, doesn't it?
Oh, no, I meant in here.
Oh, it's in the prayer. Thank you. We were just speaking two different languages at the same time. If you want to, in the prayer book, it's on page 603. If you like it in context of the Torah portion, it is on not 603. That's why I was 7. What is it?
804.
Thank you. 804.
Add something to that question.
Please.
I think personally that it could involve both.
Okay, so Paula said the idea of B'Tselem Elohim, right? The idea of we are created in the image of God, right? So I will say when people use like the priestly blessing to bless other people, right? The blessing, the words say God is blessing you, right? But the ability to say that, for me at least, does have a little bit, for me to remember that there's a little bit of the spark of the divine in each one of us. So the 3 lines, when I say the priestly blessing, the 3 lines, you're finding them on 60 something in the prayer book, 603 in the prayer book, or 804 in the context of this week's Torah portion. But it goes, Yevarechacha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yekunecha. May the light of God's face shine upon you and be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God lift up God's face to you and grant you peace. So one of the things I recently learned from another rabbi is if you look at each one of these lines, we and God are in different planes. What do I mean by that? So this teaching I read, in the first line, God seems to be above us, which is an image I think we relate to a lot, granting blessing and protection down towards us, who are in this image lower than God. The second line, though, this teaching taught that it's almost like we're seeing God face to face. Seems like we're on the same level. And then this teaching taught that in the third line, it almost appears as if God is lower than us, lifting up God's face to us. I'd never looked at it in that way before. And this teaching kind of opened my eyes to this idea. We talk about it at Sukkot about God being all around us, right? And Henry's question, like, who's doing the blessing? Is it us? Is it God? But I wonder if it's both. Because if we read this as in, may God bless you and keep you, kind of like from that up above level, then like, may God's face literally be right there with you also. And then may God lift up to you. Really, for me, made me start looking at this in an even more powerful way. Than like that, not just the idea that God is all around us, but that we have the ability to see blessings when we feel like we're up here in our life, but also see blessings when we feel like we're down here in our life. And I think that's the hardest moment. How do we find the blessings in our life when life isn't going exactly the way we want it to? I know for me personally, and maybe you relate, it's really, really, really easy to find the blessings in my life when everything is going exactly as planned. But when like nothing is going as planned, or half of the things I wanted to happen weren't going as planned, or something completely outside of my control happens, it's really a lot harder, even though those same blessings are there, to find them. So I really liked this other rabbi's teaching, that she was teaching about the fact that in each one of these very important lines to this blessing, we're kind of like could be in a different plane with God, and therefore maybe on a different place in our lives. And it really like brought this blessing to a very human level for me. Thoughts, comments, concerns? I should have worn my other talit. You'll notice now you'll be in the know. The skinny talit I sometimes wear, the Hebrew across it is Vayasem Lecha Shalom. So sometimes you can have a talit that has the blessing that you say when you put your talit on. What am I wearing? Sometimes you can have one like this that doesn't have Hebrew on it. It says Shalom down here, but doesn't have any Hebrew on the Atarah. And then you have others that you get to design. I have one that was very important to me. I wore it when this blessing was given to me to make me a rabbi 13 years ago in a few days, actually, on June 6th. 5th? 6th? 6th, I think. You think I'd remember that date. And it says those words. Wonderful. So my thought for this Shabbat is I hope that wherever we are in life, whether we're up in the clouds because everything is going wonderfully, whether it's a normal mundane day and we aren't really noticing things, or if it's a down low day where things aren't going our way and it's really hard, that no matter where we are, that when, even down here, we can find the same blessings that we can find when we are up here. Shabbat shalom. Let us now turn in our prayer book to our concluding prayers. Words of Aleinu can be found on page 586. Would anybody or two people or all of you like to volunteer to open the ark?
I'll volunteer.
Come on up. You can obviously always get candy. I'll invite the two of you up to open the ark. The panel on the right needs to open first, and the one on the left has the button. Page 586, and I invite everybody else to rise. There's a little lift up. Perfect. Thank you. Let us join together. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'tei gedula liyotzeh breshit, shelo asanu kegoyeh haratzot, velo samanu kamishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'goraleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu notei shamayim ve'yoser haaretz umoshev yikaro b'shamayim mima'al ushkinatu zo ve'govhei meromim hu Eloheinu emet molkeinu efesu lato kakatuv betorato vayadata hayom v'hashavota el levavecha ki Adonai hu ha'Elohim b'shamayim mimal ve'al haaretz mitachat ein od. Page 591. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Love each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. V'nemar v'haya Adonai lamelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yihya Adonai echad u'shemo echad. You may close the ark. The side with the button must go first.
Yeah, when you open it, it's the other way around. When you close it, it's
Yeah.
this direction.
Perfect, thank you both. I've asked for no buttons on our new ark. You may be seated. I mean, I have chocolate if you like chocolate. Chocolate, candy necklace, have one of each if you want. Really up to you. I
Thank
really
you.
love them. Yeah. I'll tell you, the reason the like candy necklaces in here and these and lollipops is because I like to have an option that is like dairy-free, gluten-free, nut-free, if there are any people here who help that want that. And I know that those really delicious compacted sugar things are those things. My daughter loves it, so. And I too, in like the 80s, loved it. But you know. which one she wants. It's because she these lollipops, we let her have a lot of Dum-Dums, you know, those lollipops, but not bigger ones too often. And so these are her special Shabbat things she likes to come in and take. We're a candy family. I'm okay with that. And I like to pass out candy because we're supposed to, Shabbat's about joy and sweetness, right? As our prayers draw to a close, we turn our thoughts to our loved ones who are no more. Tonight, we remember 3 taken from us in the past 30 days: Jeannie Samuels, Robert Berenson, and Stacy Summer. To their names, we add the names of those who passed away during the past year: John Wormser, Robert Eisenbach, Jerry Suppos, Donald Kim, Hannah Bine, Nathan Zuckerman, Bernie Flicker, Herman Van Oz, Shirley Marvin, Victoria Vestel, Morris Bonadonna, Lynn Schmulin, Jerry Black, Abraham Hutt, Ronald St. Pierre, Josh Yellen, Celestina Kovacevic, Margaret Shaw, Albert Frankel, Jerry Adams, Stephen Zuckerman, and Erwin Shabe. We also think of those who died at this season in years past and whose family members are observing the Yortzeit anniversary of death on this Shabbat. Ray Abramson, Ethel Alkus, Antoine Covington Jr., Leo Doyes, Arnold Dunham, Jack Dupaquier, Etta Epstein, Maury Feld, Ronald Kronik, Rose Lopu, Lorraine Mamp, Lena Mykoff, Jeanette Orenschlichter, Carolyn Roheim, Charles Rubin, Anne Rubin, Felix Schmulin, Rebecca Watsky, and Jacob Wickner. If there are others you are thinking of, if you'd like to share their names aloud, I invite you to do so.
Actually, yes, Helen Jenkins, my grandmother, passed away a couple of weeks ago.
So sorry. Let us join together in the words of Mourner's Kaddish, page 598, and I invite you to rise if you wish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabba, ve'alma divrach yote v'yamlich malchute, v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayei dekol beit Yisrael, v'agala uvizman kari v'imru. Amen. Yahei shmei Rabba mevarach le'olam ulamei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudasha b'richu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yahei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav Hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. You may be seated, except I will invite Victor up representing our board to share a few announcements. Your own family's name is on here, because I did not know it was you.
Aha. Okay. Well, Shabbat Shalom. I'd like to welcome everyone who's come for our standing room only service this evening. Tomorrow there's Torah study at 9:30 a.m. in the social hall and on Zoom, Minyan at 10 a.m. in the green room, and services at 10:30 a.m. in the sanctuary or on YouTube. Tomorrow evening there's a Havdalah service on Zoom hosted by the Saxey family at 7:30 p.m. Next Friday, June 9th, join us for Shab BBQ, that's a Shabbat barbecue, of course, at 5 p.m. on the front patio. We will eat barbecue together from BRQ, enjoy casual Shabbat service, partake in a sweet treat, and celebrate Jewish summer camp. The evening will be outdoors if the weather allows. All this information and more can be found in our weekly email announcements, our monthly newsletter, on our website, or by calling the office. Again, thank you all. I think we made up for the lack of numbers and spirit. And Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Victor, remember when I first got here and I had no idea how to pronounce your last name? I was like, there was this family that leads Havdalah, but I quickly learned the proper way to do it. What do people normally say?
Actually, the two things that turned it into the most, one of them is because of the question floors here, people are constantly saying sachet.
Oh, okay.
And the other one that doesn't make any sense at all is an amazingly large number of people say Sanchez. There's not even an N in it.
Yeah, that one doesn't make sense.
I'm curious, if you Google it, there's an engineering firm in Michigan where they have the same name, and they did this little video on pronunciation of the name, and they pronounce it the same way, and they've got all those same mispronunciations on Pearl Harbor that they talk about. It's really hilarious.
Yeah, now that I'm moving on my 11th month here, I'm like looking back, and Victor's name was one of the names I butchered when I first got here, definitely. I'm with good company then, probably. Wonderful. Let us close out our service with Kiddush and Motzi. I invite you to turn to page 123 and to please rise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei pari hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu Zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit Ki hu yom techila lamikrae kodesh Zecher letziat Mitzrayim Ki vanu v'charta ve'otanu kidashta Mikol hamim V'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat L'chaim. Gotta love the mayonnaise Shabbats. Yes. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz Shabbat shalom. Please come enjoy some challah from the place where I like it better. I like the Trader Joe's one better than Whole Foods.
I just took the fifth session of my class.
Wonderful. How's it going?
This session was on the past.
Oh, lovely.
And everything at all. And then, lately it's been more on the Jewish holidays. I started out teaching on the Jewish calendar.
Okay.
And yeah, it's been very interesting, and I've really enjoyed it.
Lovely. Please, 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 please.
And,
Indulge in the good challah.
Where is it from? Is it good now?
I like the Trader Joe's challah better than the Whole
so
Foods challah.
actually, yeah, this week I believe is before next week. So it doesn't actually end until September.
Okay, lovely.
It's a high holiday.
It's what it is. Lovely.
So totally it's 26.
Yes, lovely. Thank you, Henry. Thank you. Did you say it was terrible? Oh, Trader Joe's. So, everybody has their favorite. I like the Trader Joe's one better than I like the Whole Foods one. That is my personal opinion. Yes, there are a few people who have told me that the Whole Foods challah makes better French toast than the Trader Joe's challah, but plain, I like the Trader their building, and I had some, there were definitely people there who wear, seat all the time, since on. And were very, very traditional, but their main sanctuary did not have a pizza. So like, they were Orthodox without a pizza. There's, when I lived in Jerusalem, there was a modern Orthodox thing I loved to celebrate Shabbat morning at, and it had a middle so that it wasn't like so divisive. It literally was like a sheer curtain down the middle, and my side was just as lively and praying as much as the other side.
Yeah.
And then they actually January. So baby.
So did you like the last Maisel? Did you finally saw?
Yeah, so I finished it. I thought the last
You
one.
didn't agree that was better than?
I thought the last one was better than the rest of the season.
Yeah.
But I'm still disappointed in the season. But yes, I thought it ended making me want more, which was right. So I did think that, and I liked I was waiting all season to find out how she became famous, right? And so I did like, I don't want to give anything away, but I did like what had happened in that instance.
You haven't seen the last show, you said.
I have. I finished it.
That was last night?
Wait, there's another one? I watched. I think I saw the last one. Yeah.
It was Thursday. It's supposed to be Thursday.
Did I? The last one I saw was the one that I thought it was good, and it explained what happened. There is one more? Oh, it said like that was the end.
It should have been on Friday last night.
I will double check. Good night. I think I'll double check that.